father died, there wasn't much left in my life to hold on to. My marriage was over. I was almost out of money. The hospital bills still hadn't been paid. His cancer had moved fast. Only a few months after the diagnosis, he was gone. A few days after the funeral, a lawyer called. My father had left me the old family house. In that small town I barely remembered. The only thing I knew about that house was that I had spent the very first years of my life there. Not long after my mother left, my father took me, and we never went back. Not once. He never liked talking about her. When I was little, I asked him over and over again. Every time he gave me the same answer. Your mother abandoned us. But after my father died, and that old house was the only thing I had left, I didn't have much of a choice. I had to go back. If I sold the house, I could pay off my debts. At least, that was the plan. But when I arrived, I realized it wasn't going to be that easy. The house hadn't been lived in for years. Paint was peeling off the walls. The floor groaned under every step. Dust covered everything. In that condition, no one was going to buy it. Since I had no money to hire anyone, I had to do the repairs myself. I spent the first few days cleaning and trying to fix what I could. While I was cleaning, I brought down a few old boxes from the attic. Inside were yellowed letters, cracked picture frames, old bills, and family photographs. I didn't recognize most of the faces. A few pictures of my father when he was young. My mother appeared in some of them too. She was young. She was smiling. But there was a nervousness in her eyes that didn't match the smile. One photograph caught my attention. An old man in a suit, hard face, standing perfectly straight in front of the camera. His eyes were strangely empty. On the back of the photograph, written in old handwriting, was a name. My great-grandfather's name. I didn't think much of it at the time. I put the photographs back in the box and kept cleaning. The first thing I noticed about the town was the silence. I saw two people talking in front of the market. The moment I walked past them, they stopped. An older man noticed me. He stared at my face for a few seconds, then looked away. The same thing happened everywhere I went. People seemed to recognize me, but no one wanted to talk. Some stared for too long. Others acted as if they hadn't seen me at all, as if I were someone who was never supposed to come back. A few days later, someone knocked on my door. It was afternoon. I was alone, trying to work on the repairs. When I opened the door, the man standing there introduced himself. He was the town priest, newly assigned, not a local. He said he had come to welcome me and ask if I needed anything. We talked for a while on the doorstep. Eventually, I told him the people in town had been acting strangely around me. The priest was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke carefully. There's an old story people tell in this town about your family. What kind of story? They say some people from your family disappeared when they were young. Disappeared? Yes. I don't really believe it myself, but small towns have stories like that. Who disappeared? The priest shook his head slightly. I don't know the details, but when people talk about this house, about your family, they lower their voices. We talked a little longer. Then the priest left. I didn't take what he said too seriously. That night, I had the first dream. Everything was dark. I couldn't see anything. But there was a sound. Water. Somewhere, water was moving. Slow, rhythmic, patient. Then I heard a girl's voice, timid, trembling, a single word, "Mom." Then the same voice again, more desperate. "I'm so scared. I want to go home." I woke up. My heart was pounding. The room was dark, but I was fully awake. I told myself it was stress, exhaustion. I had been alone for days, trying to clean and repair an old house. I lay back down, but I couldn't sleep until morning. The next night, the dream came again. I was somewhere dark. Wooden steps creaked. A door slowly opened. Then came a girl's breathing, uneven, broken, frightened. And again that sound, water. "Mom, please, open the door." I woke up, but I wasn't in my bed. Everything around me was dark. The air was damp. The floor beneath my feet was ice cold. When my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I saw a large wooden wardrobe in front of me. I was in the basement. I had no idea how I had gotten there. I must have walked in my sleep, but I didn't remember any of it. I forced myself toward the stairs and went back up. I told myself it was exhaustion, lack of sleep, maybe sleepwalking. I couldn't find any other explanation. But the next night, it happened again. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I felt was the cold. I was in the basement again, the wardrobe in front of me. That was when I felt it, a faint current of air moving across my feet. Cold air. There were no windows down here. Slowly, I walked to the wardrobe, grabbed it with both hands and pulled. It didn't move at first. I pulled harder. It scraped heavily across the floor. There was something behind it. An iron door, built into the wall. A small lock hung from it. I went upstairs, found the key ring, grabbed the flashlight, and went back down. First key didn't even fit. Second key went in, didn't turn. Third key fit perfectly. I turned it slowly. The lock opened. I stood there a moment. Then I pushed the door. It barely moved. I put my shoulder into it. It swung open slowly. Beyond it was a tiny room. I shone the flashlight inside. A single bed, an old table beside it, a chair, several dolls lined up against the walls. Everything was old. Everything was covered in dust. Then I noticed something in the corner. An old camera, standing on a tripod. I opened the small compartment on the side. There was a VHS tape inside. I carried it upstairs, loaded it into the player, sat down in front of the television. Then I pressed play. The screen filled with static. A few seconds later, an image appeared. An old man was sitting in a chair, an old living room, facing the camera directly. There was a strange smile on his face, but his eyes weren't smiling. They were wide open, unblinking, fixed on the lens, as if he could actually see the person watching him. Then the smile widened slightly. He slowly raised one hand, reached toward the camera. The hand moved a little. A wave. The smile on his face never changed. His eyes never left the lens. The image stayed like that for a few more seconds. Then it cut out. I was just reaching for the player when the image returned. This time, the camera was showing a different place. A small room. For a moment, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then, my heart lurched. I recognized it. The hidden room in the basement. The camera moved slowly inside. The bed came into view. And then I saw her. There was a young woman on the bed. Blonde. Tall. Physically, she looked like an adult. But the expression on her face didn't belong to one. She was curled up on the mattress. Her hair was tangled. Her clothes were dirty and torn in places. There were thin marks on her wrists, dark bruises along her jaw. She looked at the camera in terror. But that look didn't belong to an adult. It was the look of a lost child. When the camera moved closer, her lips trembled. She tried to say something. No sound came at first. Then the old man's voice came from behind the camera. "Look at me." Silence. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but there was something in that calmness, something that settled wrong. "You're crying again." Her lips trembled. She whispered a single word. "Mom, your mother isn't coming." Silence. "This is your home now." Her eyes filled with tears. "If you're a good girl for a few more days, maybe I'll let you go." She started crying. "Please, I want to go home." The image cut out. When it came back, same room, same bed. She was sitting closer to the wall now, her head resting on her knees. No voices. Only the faint, distant sound of crying. The image cut again. One more time. She was sitting at the edge of the bed. She looked exhausted. Her eyes weren't on the camera anymore. They were fixed on whoever stood behind it, as if she was ready to do whatever she was told, or as if she had nothing left to resist with. Then the old man's voice came one last time. "There we go. Good girl." The screen went dark. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. Everything I had just seen kept turning over in my mind. That girl had really been kept in that room. And then I remembered the voice from my dream. "Mom, I'm so scared. I want to go home." Something heavy settled in my stomach. I went upstairs. My hands were shaking. I found the box of photographs, went through them one by one. My father when he was young, my mother, relatives I didn't recognize. Then I found him. The same face, the same hard stare, the same eyes. I turned the photograph over, read the name in old handwriting. My great-grandfather. The man on that tape was my great-grandfather. That girl had been kept in this house. By morning, I was certain of one thing. I couldn't do this alone. I put the tape in my bag and went to the church. The priest looked surprised to see me. "Is something wrong?" "I need to tell you something." I told him everything. The dreams, the basement, the door behind the wardrobe, the hidden room, the tape. At first, he had trouble believing me. But when I told him the man on the tape was my great-grandfather, that I had recognized him from a photograph with his name on the back, his expression shifted. "Are you certain?" His name was written on the back of the photograph. I placed the tape on the table. "You can watch it yourself." We watched it together in a small room at the church. When the old man appeared, the priest's face went stiff. When the camera showed the hidden room, the color drained from his face. When he saw the girl on the bed, he leaned forward and gripped the edge of the table. "Mom, I want to go home." When it ended, neither of us said anything. The priest turned off the television. Then he looked at me. "Was there anything else in the dreams?" I closed my eyes. I tried to remember the darkness, that heavy, suffocating silence. An image came back to me. Water, black and still. No moonlight, no shoreline, just a dark surface, stretching outward. "There was a place," I said. "What kind of place?" "I don't know, like a lake, dark water." His expression changed. "There's an old pond outside of town," he said. The room seemed to grow quieter. "We need to take this to the police." The station was a small building on the corner of the main road. There was only one officer inside. The priest explained everything. The basement, the hidden room, the tape, the girl. The fact that I had recognized the old man from an old family photograph. The officer didn't seem especially moved. Then he watched the tape. When it ended, he set the remote down, stared at the screen for a moment. "We need to find out who she is." He paused. "And whether there's a file on this man." He turned to an old metal cabinet behind his desk, rows of yellowed folders inside. I wasn't here when any of this happened. Some of it was before I was even born. But the sheriff before me used to talk about these files. Said there were certain cases that stayed with you, even after you retired. He opened the first folder. An old photograph slid out. An old man. My stomach dropped the second I saw his face. "Is this him?" I nodded. "Yes." He turned the pages slowly. According to the file, this was the first disappearance. The first? The man vanished one night. Some people said he ran. Some said he died. His body was never found. The priest asked quietly, "Was the lake searched?" "Yes. Divers went in. They found nothing." A chill moved through me. He opened another folder. A young man, 21 years old. The next two were the same. Same family, same age, same disappearance, 21. "That's why some people in town say your family is cursed," the officer said. "Not every generation, not everyone, but certain men. They vanished after turning 21. "Men?" "Yes." He pulled one folder closer. This was the first young man to disappear after the old one. I looked at the face in the photograph. Arrogant, cold. The officer took out an old report from the folder. A few months before he disappeared, a complaint was filed against him. He cornered a girl from town in an alley, tried to force himself on her. Something turned in my stomach. And then he disappeared? Shortly after he turned 21. At first, everyone suspected the girl's father. He was questioned. His house was searched. Divers searched the lake. Nothing. The priest asked slowly, "Is that when the curse story began?" No. Back then, people thought it was murder. There just wasn't any evidence. He turned to the other folders. The second young man vanished years later. Same family, same age. He was known around town for his temper. Put a few people in the hospital. There were stories, but most of them never made it into official reports. He closed the third folder. After the second disappearance, people started talking. Said there was something wrong with that family. Said the men disappeared when they turned 21. I thought about my mother, about what my father had told me for years. Your mother abandoned us. Maybe she had left, but I was beginning to understand why. Maybe she had run from this town, this house, this name. Maybe she had been trying to protect me. What about the girl on the tape? I asked. The officer went to a different cabinet. Older folders, thinner ones. Let's check the missing women's files. We went through photographs, old women, children, cases from nearby towns. None of them matched. Then the officer pulled out one last folder, thin, almost forgotten from the very bottom. He opened it. A photograph of a young woman slid out. The air left my lungs. That's her, I said. The priest stepped closer. Are you sure? In the photograph, she looked more alive. Her hair was brushed. She was smiling. But her eyes were the same. That same childlike gaze. Yes, that's her. The officer began reading from the file. Name, age, 21. Then he reached the notes. His voice slowed. She had a cognitive disability. He paused. According to the medical report, although she appeared physically as an adult, her mental age was that of a young child. And I heard the voice again. Mom, I'm so scared. I want to go home. My throat tightened. She left home one day, the officer continued. Never came back. Her family searched everywhere. The priest asked quietly, was the lake searched? Yes, more than once. I kept staring at the photograph. Knowing she had been mentally a child made everything heavier. The old man's calm voice echoed in my head. Your mother isn't coming. This is your home now. My stomach turned. We're going to the lake tomorrow, the officer said. We'll search deeper this time. I didn't sleep that night. The door to the basement was just past the kitchen. Every draft that moved through the house reminded me of the cold in that room. Her photograph wouldn't leave my mind. 21 years old. But her voice had belonged to a child. She had called for her mother in my dreams. Maybe she had done the same in her final moments. Maybe it had been dark. Maybe she had heard water. Maybe all she had wanted was to go home. I didn't close my eyes once. The next day, we went to the lake. It was outside of town, in a valley surrounded by mountains. Dense pine trees stood on every side. A thin layer of mist hung over the surface. The water was dark, almost still. There wasn't even any wind. Several police vehicles were parked along the shore. Divers were putting on their gear. The priest stood beside me in silence. I stared at the water, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard the voice again, very faint, from beneath the surface, or from inside my own head. I want to go home. I closed my eyes. This time, what I felt wasn't fear. It was something else. Like someone had been leading me here all along. Like the dreams had never been random. Like that girl, out of all the silent dead, had chosen me. The divers searched for a long time. Nothing. One of the officers shook his head. "I think that's it," he said. People began gathering the equipment. Then a diver broke the surface, pulled up his mask. "There's something metal down here." Everyone turned. At the bottom, buried in the silt. Within minutes, they had rigged a winch. Cables went into the water. The surface stayed still. Then something heavy began to rise. A metal box, coated in mud, an old steel safe. When they dragged it onto the shore, everyone stepped back. The lid wouldn't open by hand. They brought in hydraulic cutters. Metal screamed. The lid was forced open. A heavy smell rolled out. No one spoke. Then one of the officers looked inside and stepped back. There was a body inside. A young woman. Her hair was matted with mud. Her clothes had almost completely rotted away. But I didn't need to see her face clearly. I already knew. It was her. The girl from the tape. The girl from the file. The girl who had cried in my dreams. The priest bowed his head. One of the officers turned away. I couldn't move. In my mind, an image formed. Darkness, metal walls, water rising slowly, and a voice. "Mom, I'm so scared. I want to go home." My legs were shaking. She hadn't died alone. Her fear had stayed there. Her prayers had stayed there. And she had waited at the bottom of that lake for years. Then a small ripple formed on the surface of the water. Then another. "Look at that," one of the officers said. Everyone turned. Something was rising beneath the surface. At first, we couldn't tell what it was. Then a hand broke through. Then a shoulder. Then a face. And then another. And another. 4 bodies rose to the surface. The first was my great-grandfather. I recognized his face from the photograph. That hard expression, now bloated but somehow preserved. Like a mask that had spent years underwater, waiting. The others were the young men from the files. Same family, same bloodline. Men who had disappeared at 21. They weren't decomposed the way they should have been. They looked more like they had been held in suspension, kept somewhere between life and ruin, but never allowed to leave. The lake was finally giving back what it had kept. No one spoke. The only sound was the water, gently pressing against the shore. It was the same sound from my dreams. Slow, rhythmic, patient, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. The priest began to pray. The officers moved around the shore, but every face carried the same expression. This wasn't just an old case anymore. This was an unpaid debt, one that had never truly closed. When the surface finally became still again, I stood there for a long time. Relief and revulsion twisted together inside me. She had been found, but it wasn't only her body that had risen from the bottom. My family's darkness had surfaced too. My father had told me for years, "Your mother abandoned us." He had been right, but he hadn't told me the whole truth. My mother hadn't just left us. She had left this house, this town, this name. Maybe she had been trying to save me. I looked at the lake one last time. The water was still now, completely still. But inside me, I could still feel the cold, because that blood was mine too.